two S's. Samson was this amazing judge of Israel. He was really, really big. I imagine he was really big. He was really, really strong. Killed 100 people with a donkey jawbone, and he was just strong. But this is what it says in 28. So Samson messed up. Samson was the guy who messed up. He, for some reason, didn't want to hang out with the good girls, and he decided he wanted to make a relationship with some woman who was a hooker. And you do what you want. And he decided that he was not going to be a Nazirite who weren't supposed to drink. They weren't supposed to touch dead things, and they weren't supposed to have their hair shaven at all. He had really long hair. So what did he do? He ate out of some dead carcass, and he, what was the other one? Drank. He drank all the time. And the last straw with God was like, he tells this prostitute, hey, she keeps asking him, hey, what's the secret to your power? If a woman keeps asking you that, talk to somebody else, man. Don't hang out there. And then every time when you tell her people show up to kidnap you, reevaluate your relationship. So he finally gives in. Says that she complained to him until he felt like he was going to die, and then he goes off and says, no razors ever touch my head, and if my hair gets shaven off, then I'll lose all my power. And apparently it's a couple days, because she goes back to him, brings him back, and she shaves his head. He loses all his power. He doesn't even know that God left him. He gets captured. They do terrible things to him, and then he's in this giant coliseum, and this is where we're at. Judges 17:28. It says 16:28. I'm sorry, 17 right there. Then Samson called to the Lord, saying, O Lord God, remember me, I pray, strengthen me, I pray, just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my two eyes, because he gouged his eyes out. And he killed like 3,000, 10,000. They were in this giant coliseum. A bunch of people died. There's something I really want to point out in that one particular thing. We as people, for some reason, there's a couple things in life that we don't want to accept. Normally, when we're hanging out with friends, we don't want to accept their charity. We don't want their money. Don't pay for my meal, I can pay for my own. Doesn't matter how hard I'm struggling. You know what I'm saying? It's real. I just experienced it at Starbucks just tonight. I have a job, they don't. It's weird. But for some reason, that's just how it is. Another thing, we don't want free grace. I don't know why. But for some reason, we don't. We want to work for it. If I can't earn it, I'm not really digging into this thing. It's not going to be as important to me if it's just given to me. You know, it says freely given, freely receive, or freely receive, freely give. I think that's how it really goes. But for some reason, we want to work toward it. If we can work toward it, then it's worth it. This other thing that is just really huge. We disqualify ourselves when we screw up. I say that? Mess up. Don't do well. Trip over our own feet. Cheat, lie, steal, all those kind of things. Samson was a judge of Israel. He was supposed to be a Nazirite. He messed up in every way, shape, and form a Nazirite can. He lived with an adulterous woman, a woman of the night, what is that word? Strumpet. I talked about prostitution when I was in youth group. They taught me things. He lived with her, dude. That was the life he lived. That's the life he chose. And yet we look later on down here, he prays to God, and what did God do? He answered his prayer. You know what I'm saying? How often are we calling out to God, and we want this thing to happen. We're hoping for this, but then we're like, man, I didn't do it. It wasn't good. You got Cinderella. She's like, I was so close. Oh, it's gone. And then some woman shows up out of nowhere. You know what I'm saying? God's just going to show up out of nowhere. You just got to hang on a little longer. You got to keep going. You got to keep striving for it. You just got to keep asking. He's going to give it. It's going to happen. You just got to keep wanting it. You know what I'm saying? And then there's a couple things I just wanted to go over. You don't know how long it's going to take. You don't. I really meant to ask this person if this would be okay, but I'm just going to do it anyway because it's Jesus. So I was in Masters. Two things. More the fun one than the other one. Three things. And the third was really short. So before I was in Masters, I was in high school. I was a sophomore, and we went to camps. We always went to camps. It was just what we did. It was a thing to do. We just went to camp, got closer to Jesus, and then you came home, and then you played video games. And that's why I am the man I am today. So I'm at this camp, and this group comes from Florida. They're called Masters Commission. They're called MCIN, not MCIN. They're called Masters Commission Clearwater, Florida. And these guys are awesome. They're doing skits and they're doing dramas and they're all fun and they're giving their testimonies and it just sounds really good. And I'm like, that's awesome. When I was a sophomore, I was like, I want that. I want to do that. That's really great. I want that. That's how I talked. And then later on, just the years went by. And so I graduated. I'm like 18 at the time, living life, working construction. You know, it was the thing to do. My dad did it. That's what you do. You follow your dad's footsteps. If you haven't, then it's fine. That's what I did. And just living life. And I remember I ran to this guy my junior year at the Nazarene Church. I don't even remember his name, but I ran to this guy. And he's like, well, what do you want to do when you get older? I was like, I really want to go to this place called Masters. I think it'd be really awesome. It'd be really cool. He's like, all right. That was the other conversation. 2 years later, I happened to run into this guy at the Nazarene Church again. He had left, and then he happened to come back that day. I know, it was just chance. God had nothing to do with it. But, and he's like, so what are you doing? I'm like, we're in construction. What about that Master's Commission thing? I don't know. Anyway, long story short, I went to this other convention, and then Jesus talked to me, and then I went to Master's Commission for 3 years. So, while I'm in Master's my first year, see, look at this, it's all going. I prayed every night. They gave us prayer that you do for an hour, and I would go home, and it would be later, and then I would pray at night, because I just thought that's the thing to do, right? Somebody told me that was important, so I did it. And I remember, I have a brother, he's older than me, smaller, but he's older, and he had just gotten out of the military. He just, some stuff had just gone wrong. He'd just gotten hired. We worked together for construction for a summer, and then I booked out. And he was just, living life. You know how it is. You grow up as a Christian, you're going to church, you're doing your thing, and then you just decide that this isn't my thing anymore, so you just go and do whatever. So he's living that life. Like, I remember he lived in the drinking house. He only came to home to work drunk once and decided that's not for me. And they partied every weekend, and they just did it. And I was just like, man, I know he's better than this. I know that there's more there. Because when he gets drunk, he'd witness to people. And I said, you are halfway there. And every night, I prayed for him. Every single night. Whenever I'd be throwing it down, it would just be like, I don't know, like maybe sometimes longer than others, but every single night I prayed for him. And whenever he called me, because he would randomly call me, even though we didn't really talk. For some reason, when you're younger, the relationships you had, they're just, I don't know, we weren't close. I was close to my sister because she beat me up, and I figured that's what that was. And so I thought, she's important. But he would just call me randomly. And never did I ever say, you know what, you're just, if you didn't spend so much money on alcohol, then... Sorry, that made me thirsty. If you just didn't get drunk all the time, or man, if you just, I didn't fucking care. I can't say that. I didn't care at all. It just didn't matter to me. I was like, I love you, I care about you, and I know that you love God. And he would tell me story after story of encounter after encounter of how he was talking to the Lord with somebody, and he was doing this and he was doing that. And I would just get excited with him. And I would get excited for him. And I would continue to pray for him. And that was it. 9 months straight. That. Then guess what happened? Yeah, that's right. He stopped drinking. I know. Be excited. That was weak, but that's fine. Yeah. He's not very big. It's cool. But God showed up. He had to be that. He offered me that. I was faithful and I was diligent, and he said, sure. I was like, thanks, God. One of these. And it was awesome for me. It was my last thing, and then I'm going to go on, and then I'm going to finish. And it's going to be, we're just going more and more and more. So I was hanging out. It was Starbucks. It was about a year and a half ago. December-ish. It was December-ish of 2011. And I'm hanging out. It's me, Philip, Mark Godfrey. We're hanging out back when we were kids. We used to hang out more when I didn't have a job. But we're hanging out. We're chilling at Starbucks, and we're doing this, we're doing that. And I've been doing construction. I did construction for like 7 years. And it just got to the point where you're like, if I can work this week, I can still afford rent for the month. And that's usually what happened. I made just enough to live inside and eat food. And so I was like, this is good. So we're hanging out, we're having coffee together, and they paid for it because they're awesome. And Mark's just like, you know what? We need to pray that you get a job. And Philip's like, yeah! And he was really excited how Philip is, and he had this giant, his eyes were really open, you could see him even though he's Asian. And they prayed for me. It was just really quick. They're like, man, God, David needs a job. And I was like, all right, sweet, well, I didn't think you guys were weird. I was just like, hey, thanks, man, and I left. I'm driving, kid you not, I'm driving on Bone. My dad called me that night, not even 15 minutes later. He's like, hey, there's this position open in Toronto.